on, I was going to say Instagram, but I don't have Instagram yet. And Twitter didn't want to work for me. We're live on Facebook. We're live. I guess we're alive. We are live on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. This is the Jewish History Crash Course. I'm Rabbi Chernitsky, director of Chabad of Newfoundland. Always stronger and better. It's my pleasure to be here with you today. We are doing the class earlier due to a scheduling conflict. This might become the regular time. We shall see. At any rate, so we are exploring the life of Jacob. We're going to finish today. Again, we are going through this very, very briefly. We finished off last time speaking about his marriages, his children, his travails, until the story of his son Joseph. We actually finished off with the death of Rachel. We said Jacob buried her near Bethlehem and didn't take her to Hebron, where all the patriarchs and matriarchs are buried, because he knew with prophetic vision that she would need to be in that area one day to pray for her exiled children. The Jewish people were exiled by the Babylonians after the destruction of the first temple. Okay, so now picking up from the story of Joseph, which many people know the musical, The Coat of Many Colors. Yaakov had a very special relationship with Rachel's oldest son, Joseph. He was exceptionally bright and righteous. He was a good boy, nice Jewish boy. And he loved him more than the other brothers, more than the other children, and he commissioned a multicolored coat for Joseph to wear. They're both very jealous, and in turn, Joseph suspected his brothers of not being loyal to their Judaism. There was a lot of friction in the house, as you could imagine. And when Joseph was in his late teens, he had two dreams. The first dream that he saw how the sun, the moon, and 11 stars were bowing down to him, which were representing of his mother, father, and his brothers. Second dream is that him and his siblings, parents, were binding stalks of wheat, and suddenly their stalks of wheat, meaning his parents' siblings' stalks of wheat, bow down to his, and he shared these dreams with his family, and they hated him even more. Again, we're not covering here, this is not an in-depth class, why he did that, what was he thinking, but we're just covering the history of it in brief. One day, Jacob asks Joseph to check on his brothers who were shepherding the flock to see what they're up to, if they're okay. And long story short, they were planning to kill him. And when he goes there, they actually end up selling him to a trade caravan that was headed towards Egypt. However, they didn't, they're not going to tell their father the truth. So they ripped off Joseph's special colored coat, they dipped it in goat blood, and they told their father, like, look, we found this coat. And Joseph assumes that he was killed by a wild animal. Tarif Teraf Yosef, the Torah says. He assumes a wild animal attacked him. And Jacob mourns for Joseph, who was actually alive, for the next 22 years. So 13 years go by since the original sale of Joseph. We're skipping a lot of the details here. And Joseph goes from being a prize slave in an Egyptian ministerial household to a long-term prisoner in Pharaoh's dungeons after he's accused of trying to make advances on his master's wife, which of course wasn't true. In a dramatic turn of events, Joseph successfully interprets Pharaoh's dreams. No one else was able to interpret his dreams. And he tells Pharaoh what your dreams mean, the famous dreams where he saw the 7 fat cows, the 7 healthy cows, the 7 healthy stalks of wheat, the 7 beaten stalks of wheat. And he tells him this means that there's going to be 7 years of plenty, followed by 7 years of famine, right? First the fat cows and the thin, flimsy cows. Pharaoh was very impressed by Joseph and his belief in Hashem, that he appoints him as the viceroy. And then Joseph, with his great wisdom, proceeds to accumulate, to save up the wheat from the years of plenty for the years of famine. So the years of plenty ended, the 7 years, and then the years of famine began. People desperate from all across the region traveled to Egypt to buy food. And eventually, Jacob sends his 10 older sons to buy food in Egypt too, because the famine had affected them too in the land of Canaan, land of Israel. Upon arriving in Egypt, the brothers are brought to the viceroy, Joseph, and he recognizes right away who they are, but they didn't recognize him at the simple level of explanations, because at this point Joseph had a beard. When he was sold by them, he didn't have a beard. And Joseph wanted to test their brotherhood, to see if they hated his younger brother Benjamin, Binyamin, as much as they hated him, and see if they had any charata, any remorse for their actions, for what they did to him. And he sees that yes, his brother's sincere, regret was clear. And Joseph then reveals himself to them. I'm Joseph, your brother. Sends gifts back to Jacob, their father, and asks Jacob to move to Egypt as quickly as possible. So Jacob does so, and on the way he stops in Beersheba, which is the ancestral home of Abraham, his grandfather, and he prays to Hashem, to God. Then God tells Jacob, don't be afraid, I'm going to go with you to Egypt, and I will bring you back here one day. Of course, that would take hundreds of years when the Jewish people returned with Joshua, Yeshua. Before arriving in Egypt, Jacob sends his son Yehuda, Judah, to establish a place to study Torah, and ensure that the Jewish people will retain its identity and faith. So Jacob, his sons, and their families, which were 67 individuals, soon arrive in Egypt. When you add Joseph and his two sons, Menashe and Ephraim, that gives you 70. This is the famous 70 souls the Torah speaks about that went down into Egypt. And these are the ancestors of the Jewish nation. Jacob lived his final 17 years in Egypt. The last 17 years of his life he spent in Egypt, and the rabbis tell us that these were the best years of his life, noting that the Hebrew word for good, toiv, tes, vav, beis, has a numerical value or gematria of 17. He was cared for and surrounded by his entire family, finally at peace, shaping nachas from his children and grandchildren, who all stayed faithful to Judaism, including Joseph, who was very much involved with with the idolatrous Egyptian culture. When he wasn't involved in the culture, but he was surrounded by it, but still he remained faithful to Judaism. When Jacob first arrives in Egypt, he blesses Pharaoh that Egypt should be prosperous, and that's when the famine ended. According to some opinions, this means the famine ended early, and the Nile River would once again flood its banks, and that's what brought the famine to an end. Before Jacob passes away, he makes Joseph swear that he will take him up to Ma'arat HaMachpelah, the cave of the Machpelah in Hebron, to bury him. That is where Abraham, Sarah, Isaac, and Rebekah are all buried, and where Jacob himself had buried Leah, his second wife. Well, actually married her first. Jacob gathers his 12 sons and addresses each one of them individually with words of blessing, bit of criticism, advice, and prophecy. He lays back on his bed and he passes away. Joseph had his physicians embalm Jacob, which took 40 days, and then the entire country mourned Jacob's death for another 30 days. So after the mourning period, 70 days after he passed away, Joseph and his brothers, together with Egyptian ministers, courtiers, and an honor guard, they all carried Jacob's casket up to the land of Canaan, where they buried him in the Marat Machpelah, in the cave of the Machpelah in Hebron, as he desired. And to finish off, as I will try to add a lesson to the history course, as the Lubavitcher Rebbe taught many times, that the Torah isn't just a history book of when things happen and how they happen, but the Torah comes from the word hora'ah in Hebrew, which means a lesson. So we need to take a lesson from it. And the Lubavitcher Rebbe pointed out that Jacob's life can be broken down into 3 main periods. Number 1, when he lived in the Holy Land, the land of Canaan, he was sheltered from the entanglements of material life. That was a period of sovereignty. Number 2, in Haran, during which Jacob got married, he had 12 of his 13 children, he became very wealthy, and struggled with Esau, his brother, and Lavan, his father-in-law, who was the biggest crook. That's a period of struggle. And number 3, he's sent to Egypt, that though he was scared by Joseph, his beloved son, he was the subject to control of the Pharaoh, who was like a god, made himself like a god. And the idolatrous Egyptian environment, that was a period of subjugation. And so the Lubavitcher Rebbe goes on to explain that each one of us in our lives will go through these 3 stages, different points in our lives: sovereignty, struggle, and subjugation. So we should have a divine, transcendent soul, which is pure, nothing can affect it, right? And but we struggle. We have our issues with our environment, our habits, and the passions of our heart. Even though we don't have full mastery over our existence, we're also free, and we can resist those impulses that try to sway us away from our internal truth. Yet, you also know times of powerlessness, times when it seems like life stopped dead in its tracks, and it's been arrested by a wall of helplessness and despair. So Jacob's life inspires our own. Jacob capitalized on his years of tranquility, used his struggles to create a new nation, and even turned his years under external control in Egypt into the best years of his life. And we can do this as well. Have a wonderful day, and Shabbat Shalom. I'm Rabbi Chernitsky, Director of Chabad of Newfoundland. If you would like to reach me, leave a comment, critique, suggestions. You could do so at rabbinewfoundland@gmail.com, or you could visit our website. Guess what it is? rabbinewfoundland.com. It's been a pleasure. Have a wonderful, wonderful day, and we'll catch you next time, God willing, Wednesday, with the class on the Hebrew letters, letters of light. This is this coming Wednesday at 8:30 p.m. Newfoundland time. Take care. All the best.